Okay, we're waiting for the connection. Ready? Okay, so we are here today to do a chamber chat with Kenneth Rose. And our chamber chats are really kind of a way to get to know different people in the community at a deeper level. We're going to try to go deep with Kenneth today. So I want to start by just tell me your current rank and file and what you're doing, and then we're going to go back.
Okay, so thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thanks everybody else for coming out and for watching. So my name is Kenneth Rose, and I'm the president and CEO of Texas Health Hospital Mansfield. Brand new baby hospital that opened December 1st on Lone Star Road, right off of 287.
Okay. All right. So now we want to kind of take a look at your journey to this point in time. Okay. So tell me where you were born and raised.
Yeah, so I'm a down south kid. I was born in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And
I've been there.
You have, really? Many people have. We lived there for a really short time. I was less than a year old and moved to Chattanooga. And so that's what I really consider home.
Okay.
So Chattanooga was where I was raised. It's where I expected to live my entire life. I didn't know that anybody lived anywhere in the world except Chattanooga.
Really?
It's all I knew, so I just thought, hey, you grew up in Chattanooga, you live here. That's most people I knew did. And so I went through all my education in Chattanooga, and the day after I graduated from undergrad, I realized I didn't want to do what I planned to do. So I thought I wanted to do financial planning through Ameriprise Financial, and didn't enjoy that. So I actually finished undergrad. I'd already moved out of my parents' house. And I promised my dad, I told him I wouldn't be the kid who lived in his basement until I was 30. I promised him that, and I said, I will go out and figure something out. Well, I shouldn't have said that. Because living rent-free was very easy. But I already moved out, and so I worked at a beef farm during the day, and worked at a gym at night.
Okay.
So it was.
You have said a lot of stuff I have questions about. So just wait a minute. So time out. You're going real fast.
Okay.
So, all right. First of all, I want to know: do you have siblings?
Yes, I have a younger brother.
Okay. All right. So it's you and a younger brother. Okay. And then growing up, what were some of the things that stick in your mind from your childhood?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I mean, were there lessons? Were there connections with people? I mean, what were some of the things that you carry with you today from that time period?
Yeah, I think the thing that's probably most interesting to me from my childhood was just getting in trouble for being a class clown. I remember that from second grade on.
Okay.
And the reason that sticks with me is because I always loved people to have fun and to be happy. And I think that affected the career path I took. But it was never good parent-teacher conferences for me, because the teacher said, yeah, you know, he does good work when he works, but he's a clown. And so my parents didn't appreciate that. But that's probably one of my earliest memories from how I grew up and how I learned at school. And I just remember having a lot of relationships in Chattanooga. I had a lot of good friends, and my parents were both very social people. And, so I just remember growing up and having a lot of relationships in Chattanooga, having a lot of good friends, and my parents were both very social people. And, so I just remember.
What you got going?
Is that what I really sound like?
That's what you sound like. Other apples. Okay.
Okay. So I remember those relationships and how those were built, and so relationships have always been very important to me too.
Okay.
And Chattanooga, when I grew up there, was a very small town. It's like, I think it's 120,000 now. But back when I grew up there, I mean, we had 70, 80,000 people, probably very similar to the size of Mansfield.
Yeah.
I just love that small town feel.
So why did you think you wanted to do financial planning?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I did an internship in undergrad. It was in Chattanooga.
Okay,
I didn't have a good answer.
okay,
That's why I didn't stick.
okay.
That's exactly what I did.
So did you have any kind of an idea of like, this is what I'm gonna do when I grow?
I did at times
Uh-huh.
growing up. I thought that it would be great to get into some sort of a career path and role where I could just be a part of a team and I could be a part of making the world a better place. That's pretty vague. That's probably what a lot of kids think when they're in undergrad, when they're in high school. So it took me some time to firm that up. But I did an internship my junior summer of undergrad with a hospital system based out of Florida that I would now work for. And I worked in what they called their mission development department. So they have an entire department at this hospital that's focused on this mission statement of extending the healing ministry of Christ, and how that hospital particularly, it's a very big hospital, but how that hospital particularly delivers that mission on a day in and day out basis to the community, to its team members, to its patients. And that was a really impactful summer for me because it gave me those things of working on a team to try to make the world a better place. And it was really implementing and executing this mission for these people. And it was eye-opening, but because I was young and foolish, it was Florida. I live in Chattanooga. So I went back to Chattanooga thinking, well, that was a fun summer.
Yeah.
I wish that they were in Chattanooga, but I have to stay in Chattanooga.
I have to stay in Chattanooga. So what got you out of Chattanooga?
Well, that's 6 days a week working at the beef farm and then working.
Okay, yeah, the beef farm. So tell me about the beef farm. Before we go to that. That's interesting.
So, when we play two truths and a lie at different things as icebreakers, I put that as
no
one.
one would ever.
No one believes
No,
it. No one believes
Okay, so tell us about that. How'd you do that? How'd that even get on your radar?
Well, small town. So the OBGYN that delivered my brother, that was my mom's doctor, had this farm, and he was friends with our family. And I needed a job because I wasn't going to do financial planning. And so he had one guy that worked the farm, and he had a lot of rental properties around town. So he had a guy who, did maintenance on the rental properties and took care of the cattle and took care of I think he had about 300 acres. And so he said, well, if you want to work with Tom, you can. And so I said, yeah, I will. And so I did everything from tagging cattle to mending fence to making hay to.
You were a cowboy.
I was.
See?
Which is.
You can add that to your list of things. I'm a cowboy.
Yes. And now I'm in Texas. It all feels like it's come together.
It is. There's like a plan.
Exactly. It was an interesting time. I mean, but it taught me that I really needed to use this college degree I had. And so I called the health system where I'd done my internship. And desperate time for desperate measures.
Yeah.
I mean, so I called them and I said, hey, do you guys have anything that I could do? Another internship, maybe? I would be happy to move to Florida if I need to. And so they gave me the opportunity. They said, well, you really should consider applying for what we call a residency program. And so I applied, and it's a pretty competitive program. So I felt like probably not the most qualified person, but I'll give it a shot and just see what happens, what worst could happen. And I was really fortunate to make it through the different interviews and go down to Florida at one point and interview with some of their executives, and was accepted into the program. Was just thrilled that I got the opportunity and threw stuff in my car that I had and drove to Orlando, Florida one day and started out. I mean, it was the things that people do before they get to be 25 are just crazy. Like I think about it now, I wasn't sure where I was going to live. I didn't have furniture.
But don't you think though that we all have these turning points in our lives where, you're faced with a decision and you make it without any hesitation. And to me, those are the things that are meant to be. Right. So that was your turning point in life, was it?
I think it was. I mean, it was just a matter of God opened all the right doors at the right times.
Yeah.
And I was just eager enough to think that, yeah, I'll figure it out. And I jumped in.
Yeah.
And I didn't have one of the best GPAs going into that program, and went to graduate school and did better in graduate school. But I definitely tried to show them that I had work ethic and that I was willing to commit myself to this mission and to all of the work that we did. And over time, it led me to different roles in different places and moved around the country a little bit. And
Well, during that time, how did you develop? What were the things that the aha moments for you?
So one of the things, and I tell people this now that ask me for career advice, one thing is that I learned to be patient, as I think I still continue to mature, but as I have matured some, I think I've learned to be more patient with my career. And I try to tell kids that in undergrad. It's because you leave with this idea that adults have it figured out.
Mhm.
They've got this path mapped out. They go step by step. They go from this job to that job. They finish this degree to that degree. And so I always felt like I needed to know what my next job was going to be, and how I was going to move up and what I was going to do next. And
Right.
if I didn't know, it made me panic that something was wrong. And what I realized was patience means doing really well at what you have in front of you, being very committed to that, and being prepared for the next step. It's not that you shouldn't be prepared for bigger and different roles, but you should be focused on the one that you have, and then take time to just develop your skills, to build relationships with people where you're at, because you just never know how those skills and those relationships are going to help you when the time is right for that next step. God's timing is perfect.
How did you get to Mansfield? Did you forget?
No. By way of Orlando, by way of Chicago, by way of
Oh.
Burleson, Mansfield. I was working in Chicago. I worked for Chicago. We have this hospital system there. I was there for 6 years. And randomly one day got an email from the then CEO at Texas Health Hughley Hospital. And he had someone on his executive team retiring and asked me if I wanted to interview. So I said, sure, I'd love to, and never dreamed I'd move to Texas. So, and the only time I'd ever come to Texas, I had come to Keene for a basketball tournament when I was in high school. So Keene was my picture of Texas, if you've been to Keene. So I was like, well, this will be interesting, but I'll go give it a shot. So I landed and got here and was driving around, and I was like, well, this isn't Keene. This is really nice. But had some interviews and felt like a good fit for me. Unfortunately, they thought it was a good fit for them. And so my wife and I moved to Burleson in 2016. And that same year, Advent Health and Texas Health Resources, which are the partnership that run Hughley Hospital and now Mansfield Hospital, they were talking about the Mansfield market.
Right.
And they had been for a while. And in 2016, they got really serious about, we really should buy land and build this hospital in Mansfield. That place is growing. It's going to continue to grow in the South. It's a great city. And so I was a part of those meetings a little bit. And in 2017, they got their board approval. They purchased the land. The two partners funded the construction project and the startup operations. And in 2018, November, we broke ground. And so I had asked my boss then if I could interview for the job at Mansfield. So I thought it'd be exciting to build a new hospital. Little did I know it's also a big, daunting task. Nerve-wracking. But again, I was just sort of eager and thought, yeah, that would be really great to do. And so I asked him for an interview, and over time, I got more involved with the project and was ultimately given the opportunity to be the CEO of the hospital. And so my wife and I moved here in 2019. It was important to she and I both, and to my corporate bosses, that this is a brand new market for Texas Health and Advent Health. We didn't know anyone here, no one knew us. If I was going to be the CEO, it made the most sense to live in this community, start to get to know people in this community, because we really feel like healthcare and our brand is best transmitted by word of mouth and through relationships. And so we moved here, very glad we moved here, we love it here. obviously lived here for almost 2 years. My daughter was born at Hughley. My son was born at Mansfield. So I have 2 Texans in my house. One of them's Mansfield, Texas, which is really cool. And yeah, so that's kind of been how we migrated here. We love it here.
Okay. So, you didn't tell us how you met your wife.
Online.
Online?
Online in Chicago. And she gives me a hard time. I had lived in Chicago for a couple of years. She's from Northwest Indiana, near Valparaiso. And she had just moved to Chicago maybe a week, and we met. And we started to date, and eventually got engaged. And she's like, I moved to Chicago to like live as an adult with a professional, single life, meet people. No, that was you. Good for you, though. But no, we met there, and she was a wonderful addition to my life. That's a good way to say it, I think. But she's been a great partner for me in life, and moved to Texas with me, which was a big deal for her. Because her whole family's in Northwest Indiana. All of her friends in Northwest Indiana. So coming to Texas was a scary moment.
Big deal,
it was a big deal. But she jumped in wholeheartedly, and we've loved it. We both fit very well in Texas.
So what are your hobbies?
Golf.
Really?
Love golf.
Okay.
Yes, that's probably my single biggest hobby. Having 2 kids that are 2 and 2 months, that's
your hobby.
That's very time consuming. So I love spending time with those 2. So I don't do too much other than try to play golf a little bit and spend a lot of time with them. We love to travel also. I was telling James the other night, we did our last big trip before we had my daughter a couple of years ago. We went to Australia and New Zealand and spent 3 weeks traveling, and that's our hobby. We just need to figure out how to be able to do it with kids.
Yeah, everybody wants to know how to do that. Sure. Yeah. So do you have some sort of a motto or a creed that you live by?
Not just one. I think there's a lot of core principles of who I am that sort of drives me. And a lot of those are pretty biblically focused. So I'm a big believer in doing unto others as you'd have to do unto you. I just think the way that you treat people is a big reflection on who you are as a person. And so I try to treat people with a lot of respect, a lot of kindness. Those are things that make me who I am. And then I'm a big believer in constant improvement. Better yesterday than today, better tomorrow than today. Just always trying to be
and how do you do
a little
that?
bit better. I try to do it through mentorship, through relationships. So within our company, there are a few people that I consider, one that I consider a mentor and some others that are coaches. And so I really rely on them to help me with feedback, because I am still young, I guess, and very new in my career. I've only been a CEO for 2 years, and that learning curve is super steep.
Really?
So getting them to help invest in giving me advice and helping me to learn, giving me feedback. So I believe it's through relationships and mentorships, coaching, through reading. I've been really bad about that lately, I'll admit it. But I try to be a person who reads quite a bit.
Do you have a favorite book?
One that has been really, I'll say, I don't know if it's my favorite, but one that's been very, very impactful in a broad way is called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Luciani. And I say broad impact because I read it kind of randomly as I was working on getting the hospital started up. And I was thinking about hiring a team. And so it's a book with the premise of ideal team players are people who are humble, they're hungry, and they have people smarts. So they have emotional intelligence. Like those are ideal team players. And so it's a leadership fable that goes through this story and then boils down to those principles. So I read it and felt like that's exactly how I want to build this Mansfield team. And so I bought 40 copies of that book, and I used it as a way to sort of evaluate the different people that I hired. And then I gave it to them when they started and said, this is how I want you to go out and hire the next 10 to 100 people that you're going to hire.
That's great.
And ironically, all those leaders read it. It kind of surprised me, but they all read it. I think Tiffany Hernandez is a great product of that book, because she was a tremendous find because she fits all those things so wonderfully.
Well, I will say that's one thing that I've noticed when I meet anyone in your team is that you can tell that for a lack of a better way to put it, you've all drank the Kool-Aid. So but there's a pattern and it's a good one. So you can tell that you've hired people within the same cloth, so to speak.
I appreciate that. I mean, it was very, very intentional. It was almost painstaking at times for all of our leaders because we put a lot of thought into the people that we asked to join our team. Because our first priority at Mansfield is to take care of each other, is team first. Because we believe, just like when you sit down on an airplane and they say if the oxygen mask comes down, if you're sitting next to a kid, put yours on and then help the kid. Because if you pass out, what happens? So for us, it's team first. Put your oxygen mask on. Let's take great care of team, which means you need to have great people. Because then we can accomplish our second priority, which is to take great care of our patients, which includes the community, patient families, the patients who need care, and then lastly, take care of this business that we have, because we are called to be good stewards of what we have. And so that ideal team player just really helped us clarify who we were looking for. Sometimes it was very obvious that a person was a no. Sometimes it was very obvious that a person was a yes. And there were some that were great in the middle. We didn't get it all right, but it helped a lot.
What were some of the challenges in taking on that role? Not only the role of CEO, but a brand new hospital.
Yeah. I would say that the one of the big things was starting and building a new hospital with a partnership. So with two corporate parents.
Mom and dad.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you ever built a house, you do it with a spouse, man, it takes a lot of communication, it takes compromise, if you built it by yourself, it'd be easy. You make every decision, you'd say, I want that, do that. So that's challenging just because you have to take into account your partner. And so things take a little bit longer sometimes. Compromises can be hard sometimes. So that was challenging, understanding that we were going to do this together. But Texas Health Resources is a tremendous company with great people that have been great partners to us. And I've worked for Advent Health for 13 years, and we have a lot of great people. I have a lot of tremendous support from our sister facility at Texas Health Bugley Hospital. They have a phenomenal executive team and leadership team that supported us and helped us. So it was all good people and well-intentioned people around the table, but you have to take the time to work together on it. So that was challenging. Another kind of steep learning curve and thing that was challenging for me was not trying to solve every problem and do everything myself. When you start out as a one-man team at a new hospital, you kind of get into that flow. All the questions come to you, and all of the problems kind of need to be solved with you or by you. And so as I started to add people to the team, it's taken me a long time to start to realize we're not a one-man team anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
I don't have to do that.
You got somebody else.
Tiffany's here, she's very smart.
Yeah.
Kristen's here, she's very smart. Stephanie's here, she's very smart. Toka's here, he's very smart. So there's this team of people who are really great at what they do. And so I've had to be, mature and secure enough to say, hey, I don't need to be in every decision or give you guys my opinion on everything. Or they don't want it sometimes.
They're probably glad,
Yeah, but I can set them free and support them, and if they run into barriers or questions, they obviously I try to be very approachable so they can ask me. But that was different because you start as one, and then there's 2 or 3 of you, and then there's 5 of you, and then there's 15 of you. And as the team grows, it changes the dynamics a little bit. Sure, that was an interesting change.
Before we end the Facebook Live portion, I do want to compliment you on something, because one of the questions that we always get here at the chamber is, especially for somebody new coming in, what do I need to do, and what's the best thing to do, and it's not a hard answer, but it is to build the relationships. And I know that that is at your core who you are. When you first came here, that was the very first thing you did. You didn't have a building, there was nothing. They hadn't even broken ground, but you were here building relationships and meeting people. And you spent time doing that. People knew who you were before it was even built. So that is extremely important. And to me, that's a great lesson to be learned from you, to share with others, that is so important. But I'm going to end the Facebook Live. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
You're going to stay there because we have an audience and they have questions.
All right.
I know several of them have lots of questions. And so you got it wound down there. Okay.
Okay,